Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Maddow, and in the next few minutes, I am going to share something with you that will completely change how you see Ukraine's air defense situation. Mount the owls. Before I go any further, there is something extremely important you need to understand. What I am about to tell you came through intelligence sources about 6 hours ago. You will not see this on social media. There will be no official announcements. You will not randomly find this information online because the people who know about it have very strong reasons to keep it quiet for as long as possible. But the truth is already leaking out, and it is a total game changer. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, at this very moment, Ukraine has a NATO-level air defense system fully active and operational. And this system is unlike anything Ukraine has had since the war began. I am not talking about equipment that is still being delivered or set up. I am saying it is already working. It is already stopping incoming. It is already protecting cities that have been hit by Russian missiles for nearly 2 years straight. It is already shielding power plants and critical infrastructure that Russia has tried to destroy every winter. And in simple terms, Ukraine now has an invisible protective shield. For almost the entire war, Ukrainians have lived with the fear that Russian missiles could strike anywhere at any time with very little to stop them. That reality has just changed. To understand why this matters so much, you need to know what Ukraine's air defense looked like until now. For nearly 3 years, it has been a patchwork, a mix of old Soviet-era S-300 systems that are running out of missiles, a small number of Patriot batteries stretched far too thin across a country nearly the size of Texas, NASAM systems doing incredible work but only able to protect limited areas. Ukrainian air defense crews have performed miracles with what they had. In many cases, they stopped 80, sometimes even 90% of incoming missiles and drones. But there was always a problem, that remaining 10 or 20%. Those were the missiles that hit apartment buildings in Dnipro. Those were the strikes that destroyed power infrastructure in Kyiv. Those were the missiles that killed civilians who believed they were safe in their homes. Ukrainian families have endured 2 winters without reliable electricity because Russian missiles found gaps in the defenses. 2 winters in the cold and dark, families huddled together for warmth. Children doing homework by candlelight because the power grid could not be fully protected. Here is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Through intelligence channels, we obtained intercepted Russian military communications from last night. And what they reveal shows exactly what Moscow is facing right now. A Russian commander responsible for strategic aviation was reporting back after a missile strike failed. You could hear the tension in his voice as he said, launch confirmed, flight path normal, then nothing. Every missile was engaged by surface-to-air systems at ranges our intelligence said were impossible. But he kept asking the same questions. How do they have this capability? When did this happen? That same confusion is now spreading through Russian military leadership because NATO did not simply send another Patriot battery. What was deployed is something far bigger. NATO has put in place an integrated air defense network that military experts are already describing as nearly impenetrable. That is a phrase rarely used in modern warfare because no defense is ever truly perfect. But this system is changing the rules entirely. According to sources with direct knowledge of what was deployed, and I am being careful not to identify them because doing so would end their access, this system combines multiple layers of detection and interception into one unified shield. It includes radar systems capable of tracking hundreds of targets at the same time from distances greater than 400 kilometers. It includes interceptor missiles that Western defense officials privately admit have success rates they have never seen before. It includes command and control systems that make engagement decisions in seconds rather than minutes. And this is the part that should terrify Russian missile crews. This system was not designed only to stop the weapons Russia is using today. It was specifically built to counter hypersonic missiles that are not even widely deployed yet. Think about that. NATO analyzed Russia's entire missile arsenal: Kalibra cruise missiles, Iskander ballistic missiles, Kinjal hypersonic weapons that Putin has repeatedly claimed are unstoppable, and then built a defensive system designed to neutralize all of them. For weeks, military observers had noticed strange activity. Large cargo aircraft landing at Ukrainian air bases in the middle of the night. Heavily guarded convoys moving across western and central Ukraine. Construction at sites that suddenly became restricted zones where even Ukrainian soldiers without special clearance were turned away. And satellite imagery analysts saw unusual equipment appearing near Lviv, Zhytomyr, and Vinnytsia. Defense journalists began asking questions. Intelligence experts drew their own conclusions. But no one understood the full picture until last night. That is when Russia launched a major missile attack targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure. It included some of their most advanced weapons. Russian planners believed the size and sophistication of the strike would overwhelm Ukrainian defenses. And instead, Ukraine shot down every single missile. Not most of them, not nearly all of them. Every one. We also intercepted a communication from a Ukrainian air defense officer during that attack, and you need to hear what he said. His voice was filled with disbelief and emotion as he reported back to command. Splash 16. Splash 17. They are not getting through. Our interceptors are getting through. The system is working exactly as they promised. My God, it actually works. That moment was more than just a successful defense. It was a psychological breakthrough. For the first time since this war began, Ukrainian air defense crews realized they finally had the tools to truly protect their country. Plain. For years, these officers have watched Russian missiles strike their homeland, knowing their systems were not good enough. They were forced to make impossible decisions about which cities to protect and which areas to leave exposed. They carried the emotional weight of every civilian death caused by missiles they could not stop. Duran asks, now, for the first time, that burden is lifting. They finally have equipment that allows them to do their job the way it was meant to be done. And the official name of this system remains classified. NATO officials are refusing to confirm which member states contributed specific components. But military analysts who have studied the deployment and the limited information available have reached clear conclusions about what this represents. Joel, this is not just an upgraded version of existing air defense platforms. It is a new generation of integrated air defense. It combines long-range search radars capable of detecting threats at extreme distances. It uses tracking radars that can maintain locks even under heavy electronic jamming. It employs multiple types of interceptor missiles, each designed for different ranges and different threats. Laying at the center of it all is the command and control network, the digital brain of the system. It automatically evaluates threats, prioritizes targets, assigns interceptors, and coordinates engagements across units spread hundreds of kilometers apart. Bert's out. A missile detected in western Ukraine can be destroyed by launchers in central Ukraine with decisions made by AI-assisted systems in milliseconds. Albienda, retired NATO air defense commander, speaking more freely than those still in uniform, explained what makes this so revolutionary. He said the breakthrough is not any single radar or missile. It is the integration. Every radar, every launcher, every command center operating as one unified organism instead of separate systems. That integration creates defensive power far greater than the sum of its parts. And this is where the real-world impact becomes massive. Russian military planning has relied on the assumption that missiles and drones could strike anywhere in Ukraine at will. Missile attacks were used as punishment when diplomacy failed or when Ukrainian forces won on the battlefield. Civilian infrastructure was deliberately targeted to break morale. That strategic weapon is now broken. The successful interception of an entire Russian missile attack was not just a tactical victory, it was a strategic message. You can no longer hurt us this way. The weapon Russia used to terrorize civilians, to destroy infrastructure, and to apply political pressure through fear has been neutralized. Mond intercepted Russian communications in the hours after the failed strike, revealed a panic spreading through Moscow's military planning circles. One officer from the Strategic Rocket Forces was discussing the interception rates with a colleague, and his disbelief was clear. Command is demanding answers. How did they intercept Kinzhals? Those missiles are supposed to be unstoppable. Our entire doctrine depends on them getting through. How did they intercept Kinzhals? That question exposes a deep flaw in Russian strategy. Moscow invested enormous resources into hypersonic weapons, specifically to defeat Western air defenses. Putin personally unveiled the Kinzhal in 2018, calling it invincible and claiming it made NATO defenses obsolete. These missiles were meant to guarantee penetration. Now they are being knocked out of the sky. The psychological impact on Russian missile crews is devastating. These operators spent years launching strikes knowing their weapons would hit. Some interceptions were expected, but never total failure. That confidence is gone. Shah, 3 days before last night's failed strike, a Russian missile technician expressed concern in an intercepted conversation with a friend in another unit. He said, "We are hearing rumors about new Ukrainian air defenses. Command tells us not to worry, that our missiles are too advanced to stop." But they said the same thing about Moscow. What if the rumors are true? The rumors were true, and they underestimated just how serious this was. The consequences extend far beyond the battlefield. For 2 years, Russia has used missile strikes as a strategic tool. When Ukraine succeeded on the front lines, Russia punished cities. When civilian morale held, Russia escalated infrastructure attacks. The implicit threat was always the same. We can hurt you whenever we want. That threat disappeared last night. Bland missile strikes meant to force Ukraine toward surrender are no longer effective if they never reach their targets. Infrastructure destruction meant to weaken Western resolve cannot happen if missiles are intercepted. One of Russia's primary levers of pressure has been removed. This fundamentally reshapes Putin's options. According to diplomatic sources familiar with recent NATO discussions, this is where the story becomes even more significant. The decision to deploy this advanced air defense system was made at the highest political levels of the alliance. This was not just a military judgment about equipment. It was a strategic decision about responsibility and resolve. Abendi, one NATO official speaking under strict anonymity because these talks remained classified, explained it this way. "We reached a point where the question was not whether we could help defend Ukraine's airspace, but whether we were willing to. We had the capability. The issue was political will. And leadership decided that allowing Ukrainian cities to be struck by missiles we could help stop was unacceptable." That shift from capability to commitment marks a major turning point. It sets a precedent that extends far beyond this single system. If NATO is willing to deploy its most advanced air defense technology to protect Ukraine, then other previously unthinkable decisions may also become possible. The deployment itself required extraordinary coordination and secrecy. According to sources with knowledge of the operations security around this transfer, was tighter than almost any other military move during the war. NATO transport aircraft moved components into Ukraine over several weeks using routes and schedules designed to evade Russian intelligence. Bland specialist personnel from multiple NATO countries traveled into Ukraine to install, connect, and initially operate the system alongside Ukrainian crews. Training took place both at NATO facilities in Poland and Romania and at secure locations inside Ukraine. This system is highly complex. It integrates multiple radar types, coordinates, different interceptor missiles, and manages automated engagement sequences. Ukrainian operators underwent months of intensive instruction to master it. A NATO trainer who worked directly with Ukrainian air defense crews described their mindset. These were not just soldiers learning equipment. These were defenders learning how to protect their families. Every hour of training meant another chance to stop a missile from hitting an apartment building in Kyiv. That motivation made them the fastest learners I have seen in 2 decades. That human element is crucial. This is not just a story about technology. It is about people finally being given the means to defend their homes. The system became operational. Different regions of Ukrainian airspace came under full protection as each component was installed, tested, and linked into the network. The moment it reached complete operational capability was deliberately kept secret. NATO and Ukrainian leaders wanted the system fully ready before Russia had any idea what had been deployed. That secrecy paid off in a dramatic way last night. Russian planners, still unaware of the system's true capabilities, launched a major missile strike expecting to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses with numbers and advanced weapons. Instead, they unintentionally provided a live demonstration of how powerful this new defense really is. A large, complex attack was detected, engaged, and completely defeated. Menda, Ukrainian civilian in Kyiv, described the experience after spending the night in a shelter. The sirens went off. We knew missiles were coming, and we prayed the air defense would stop them. Last night felt different. We heard the interceptors launch. We heard explosions in the sky, then nothing hit the city. Nothing for the first time since the war began. I feel like maybe we are actually protected now. That sentence captures the true impact of what happened. For the first time in years, Ukrainian civilians experienced a night of missile alerts without destruction. This moment represents more than a defensive success. It signals a shift in the entire balance of the war. Russia's ability to intimidate, punish, and coerce Ukraine through missile terror has been stripped away. A central pillar of Moscow's strategy has collapsed. Ukraine now fights under a protective shield that allows its people to live and its leaders to plan without the constant fear of unavoidable missile strikes. What comes next will depend on how Russia adapts and how far NATO is willing to go. But one thing is now clear. The era in which Russian missiles could strike Ukrainian cities with near impunity has ended.